On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
As a business owner, if you're starting out, you have to think big in order to get big. And if you think that you're mom and pop, you're going to stay mom and pop. But you have to put that structure in your business and that mindset. And again, form that discipline of doing your board meetings, doing your minutes, setting up your company agreements and documents in a way to where you're legit. And even though it's just one or two of you, it doesn't make a difference. You know, that value, it gets built over time.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in. What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. Today, I've got a special queen on the king stage, Beth Rohani. How are you?
Hey, hi. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and I cannot tell you how excited I am for this interview. We were like hustling to get to the record button because you have given me 20 minutes already of just downloaded, just great information. I got to stop. We got to get this on recording.
We're bonding.
For this, you know, we were just talking about your alter ego. Maybe that'll pop up in the conversation. Sarah is her name. Maybe she'll pop up. We've got a long history of really cool things happening in your business and life right now. So we got a lot to cover. So Beth, tell us what kind of business that you have.
Yeah. So as far as my life is concerned, it's consisted of the moving industry. My mom opened up a moving company in Dallas about year 2000. And then I started mine in 2001. So it's been about a little over 20 years, been in the moving industry here in Houston. And we, throughout this development of time, gotten into the real estate business as well. So just a little bit of, entrepreneurship here and there.
Yeah. We'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure. I got to know, though, is it Houston or is it Houston?
It just depends. Yeah, it just depends on what part of the country that you're from. But
got it. Okay.
Yeah, we're Houstonians, H-Town proud all the way.
H-Town. Okay. You know, we talked about this before we hit the record button. I've never been to Houston. Been close a couple of times. Been to Texas many times, but I've always heard this, back and forth of Houston or Houston. So I had to bring it up. I want to know in this moving industry, obviously being female, like that's unique in itself. I want to definitely get to that. But you're clearly a queen in the business. We say king's not masculine. It's mindset. It's all these things that bring, just this incredible leadership to business. You are all these things, but I want to know, my first question is, why are you going to continue to press in? You got all this stuff happening in your life in the positive. What are you after? What's the bigger picture for you? Why are you still doing it after the success that you've gotten?
I think what drives me and allows me to continue to do what I do every day is really boils down to my core values of who I am as a person. And I've, over the years, identified that my core values drive everything in me, whether it's personal or professional. It's something that's really inherently important for me in any of the decisions that I make. And, for me to keep going, I've built something that I am proud of. I say it's kind of like I never had kids. And so for me, it's my college student. I've birthed it and it's gone through all the growing pains of, being a teenager and everything else there in between. And, through these challenges, you have this drive, you have this passion of always wanting to get to the next level. And how do you get to the next level? And I think ultimately it's just been something I've inherently had as a person that, just kind of developed in me.
I can appreciate that. It sounds like a well thought out answer. Now, has it has it always been like that, or was that developed over the course of time, or the raising through the teenage years? Like, give us the backdrop.
Yeah. So, if we're talking about core values,
Sure.
I have always tried to be a good person, and believe in my instincts and believe in doing what's right. My parents have definitely been the foundation of that.
Yeah.
They're about to celebrate 50 years of being
Wow.
married, and
That's big.
yeah, major. And to be able to see, everything that they have sacrificed as parents for me, to be able to give me the opportunities that I've had,
Yeah.
is really, really important. And so now I'm at a stage in my life where I am an adult, and you get to a point where you start to self-assess, right? And just figure yourself out. And for me, I've realized that I didn't know what my core values were. I knew what I believed in, I just didn't know how to articulate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in 2012, actually, there was a person that asked me, "What are your core values, and what is your passion?" And I just
Yeah.
kind of sat there like, "What are they? Like, how do
Yeah.
I express them?" And it became something that I went on a search for. And
Yeah.
so from 2012 on, I searched, and I ended up doing an EOS system. It's an entrepreneurial operating system,
Yeah.
where one of the exercises was to figure out what your core values were.
Yeah.
And that was 2018 when I figured out how to articulate my core values. And, number one is accountability. And then number two is integrity. So those two drive me. And I think have always been inherently something that I've carried. I would always tattle on my brother. I was like the teacher's pet. My brother, he would be doing mischievous things, and I would always be the
Uh-huh.
one that's like, telling my mom,
Uh-huh.
and
That's right.
yeah. So it was just one of those things where I was the accountability queen growing up, and I think
That's
I
right.
still am to this day, because I'm so responsible for so many people and so many
Yeah.
things when you are an entrepreneur, that you want to
Yeah.
make sure you're making the right decisions. And again, those core values come into play when I do make those decisions on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think that if you were to define accountability, I think that everybody listening would agree. Like, oh yeah, I desire that, or I want to be that, or I want to emulate that, or I want to portray that to my clients or my team or whatever, right? But what we as entrepreneurs often find is that we fall short in that area because we don't close loops very well, or our personality, kind of, you mentioned clearly you're either the firstborn or at least the firstborn daughter, because my firstborn daughter is just like that. The reality of it is that whether we're talking firstborn or secondborn or baby, or we're talking the personality profile, there is something inside of you that innately, to your point, from being a kid, is your cake is baked in a certain way. So for the person listening that hears this, and maybe they're not like this naturally, accountability is still huge. It's number one for you. Maybe it's not number one for them, but I guarantee it's on the list. What would you recommend as being the accountability queen for someone who maybe doesn't come to it as naturally? What should they do? What should they focus on? Can you give them a little tidbit?
Yeah, a lot of it deals with mindset, and a lot of it deals with the ability to be able to stay disciplined, stay
Yeah.
focused. And so you have to find particular tools that help you do that. So for me,
Yeah.
for example, if there is a commitment that I have made, I will make sure that I fulfill that commitment. If I have given somebody my word, giving somebody your word and making sure that you uphold what it is that you tell them is
Yeah.
so important. I'll call you on Monday at 9 o'clock. Well, Monday at 9 o'clock, you need to call that person. And if anything, call them at 8:59. Don't call them at 9:01,
Right.
because those types of characteristics display that integrity, display the fact that you are willing to take on that responsibility. So important for me, for my team member. Whenever I sit there and I tell them I'm going to do something, as a leader, I have to lead by example. And
Yeah,
if
it's
I
true.
don't lead by example, how do I expect them to follow my lead and tomorrow, be that
Yeah.
that leader that I expect them to be? So, a lot of it is your own personal characteristics and defining those
Right.
personal characteristics, and, just being accountable for what it is that you put your mind to, and finding those tools. I have checklists. If there's an email that I need to send that I need to respond to, it stays in my inbox until that's done, and then it gets filed away. And so while it's in my face constantly, I'm thinking about it, and it's always something that's, there's two sides, like talking to you all the time, and you're just like listening and trying to balance it out, because to also be accountable, it's time consuming. It's making sure that, you fulfill those commitments. And again, identifying your weaknesses will allow you to be able to enhance those areas that you need to enhance. And I think, starting out with your word and how you do it, improve it, because that's one of my life's mottos. Do it, improve it. If somebody comes and tells me, oh, I am so good at doing this, and, I have the ability to sell, this to, whoever, okay, well, do it, improve it, and let me see it, because through actions, develops trust over time. And so having the ability to do that in whatever it is, I think ultimately builds your character and defines that you are a responsible, dependable person who can ultimately be accountable.
Yeah. You said two things that I just really want to hit home for the listener. You identified accountability immediately with your word. And I just think, just in today's age, and your parents and my parents and our grandparents time frame, it was a lot of the only thing that they had, because there weren't maybe contracts, and it was more of a handshake and a word. But today, it doesn't mean as much. And so I'm even teaching my children about how much more it actually means, because it doesn't mean that much regularly. It's become tossed away. And so I think actually now the value of it is just that much more. And so I just want to hit that home from my perspective. And then the last thing you said, it all dials down to trust. If you're accountable, then people can trust you. If people trust you, that opens up the gate to basically almost everything that you want, because you can offer your service to them, or you can offer repeat service, or you can refer, or you can be friends, or you can whatever the scenario is in this relationship. But trust is the baseline of a lot of it. And being accountable, doing what you say you're going to do, builds a history so that someone eventually says, that person I can trust.
Absolutely.
Big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's challenging in some cases, because, as business owners, you get burned so many times.
That's right.
There are people who exemplify those characters, but you're still questioning them. And so as a business owner, you really have to, let your guard down at times and let go of the vine. And that was something that I learned in traction, because as a business owner, I'm constantly holding on and wanting to make sure that I have control over everything.
That's right.
And I'm now getting to the point where I'm able to, let go of that vine and fall wherever I need to fall and see where it lands me. Because if I don't trust them, then I can't grow the business. I can't grow people. I can't, get it to the point where, it allows me to be able to improve and bring value.
Yeah. You're 100% right. Even when we've been burned was the point that you're making, which is so impactful. I really hope the listener's paying attention, because most likely the listener hasn't been able to scale to 7 or 8 figures. And a huge part of that, which is obviously a big part of what Traction is about, is being able to not only build a team, but build a team in an organized fashion so that the business can grow. And the listener probably has tried to hire a person or 2 or 3, and it probably hasn't worked out. They probably didn't do a very good job of defining the role, and didn't do a good job of putting the right people in the right seat based on personality and skill set and all the extra thought and intentionality that you've learned. But looking back, it's like, man, the person listening right now, it's worth it. Even though it has burned you in the past, it's worth it. And so I think that the what you just delivered them is hope, really, is like, even though you've been burned, it's okay. You can still let go and it'll work out.
Oh yeah. And I'll tell you, COVID was my biggest moment where I had to find hope, because as a business owner, you go through so many challenges and so many obstacles that you're confronted with, and you pick up and you keep carrying on, and you pick up and you keep carrying on. And then all of a sudden you have something like COVID hit. And now you are trying to navigate through this, time of uncertainty. And I was in the shower and I dropped the soap and I went to go and pick it up. And the thought came to my head because I was thinking about all this stuff. And the only word I remember at that time, and this was maybe around 2020, was resiliency. As a business owner, you have to have the resiliency. And however many times you go through any challenge or any obstacle or you get burned, you have to pick right back up and keep carrying on. And, for the longest time, I would say I'm like a horse with blinders on because there's so many distractions that come your way, whether it's economical, whether it's internal, external, whatever the case is, that as a business owner, you're confronted with, that you can't get distracted by all of it. You have to maintain your focus. I might not be able to get there in 1 year or 3 years or 5 years. It's going to get pushed a couple of years, but still have that direction of where you want to go ultimately, regardless of, whatever challenges come your way.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I hope you guys are paying attention, taking notes, because Girls on Fire. We're going to keep moving on, though. I want to hear your story as far as how it started. How did you get into the business world? Was this the first one? I know it's been your baby for a long time. Was there a story before that? Give us a little bit of the beginnings of entrepreneurialism.
Yeah, so I was a communication journalism major. If you can tell, I like to talk a little bit. But for me, just language is so important. And it is something that, I'm a first generation Iranian-American. So I came to the United States when I was 7 years old. It was in 1984. My parents left everything. They left their home, they left their business, their families. My dad was the youngest of 14.
Wow.
And they made the sacrifice because in Iran at that time, the government was changing and it was first grade. I came home with a note that said, your daughter is going to have to start wearing a hijab coming to school from now on and has to come covered up. And my mom was like, no way, this is not happening. My daughter is not going to be brought up in a society where she's going to have any restrictions and she's not going to have her freedom and independence. And so I had my younger brother, he's 2 years younger than me, that they picked up a couple of suitcases. I remember going to the airport at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and couldn't really understand what was going on. One moment I remember my aunt, she was a seamstress growing up and she always sewed little dresses for me. And there was this skirt that she had sewn and I was sitting outside of our house on the ledge, just watching people and cars go by. And my mom came and grabbed my hand and pulled me inside and said, you can't go outside anymore like that. And I couldn't understand as a 7-year-old what was happening, why I couldn't do that. And now, as an adult, being able to see that the government was changing and the world was changing, it now makes perfect sense. And to go through the airport and see the, military with the guns, as a kid, I couldn't understand. But in any case, when we did come into the United States and walk through the airport at DFW, the first song I ever heard was Stevie Wonder's I Just Called to Say I Love You. And I couldn't even speak English, but that melody, it just stuck with me forever, And then I came and I started first grade. My parents held me back because they thought it would be easier for me to learn English. So I was also the first person that got to drive in high school, which was like, I was like in 8th grade and I was like the cool kid, and all the other kids wanted to get in my car and drive with me. But in any case, there was like perks to it. And so it was something that I started in ESL, English as a second language. I learned how to speak English. And so language kind of became something for me that, I remember my dad holding up little index cards with the word jump, and I could not say it. I could not figure out how to say the words jump. And now it's like nuts. But in any case, those types of experiences built me as who I am. My parents, first generation, they had to start life over. My dad started at a laundromat, my mom at an ice cream parlor. And then she went to do a little bit of retail in the mall, became a bookkeeper. And then while I was in high school, she studied her way through and became a registered nurse and got her nursing degree. My dad eventually bought the laundromat. So that was kind
Wow.
of, the first stages of understanding that my dad was an entrepreneur, although in Iran, he and all of his brothers owned a corporation together. So he was an
Yeah.
entrepreneur in Iran as well. And
Yeah.
so just kind of seeing them and what they did in life really
Yeah.
allowed me to be able to see what it meant to be an entrepreneur, the hard work. My dad would bring
Yeah.
like buckets of quarters home from the laundry machines, and my
Yeah.
brother and I would have to like roll them,
Yep.
so he could go and
Yep.
make the deposits and stuff. And then shortly thereafter, he got into the Oriental rug business. So he
Okay.
started importing Persian rugs, and so right next to the laundromat, he opened up his rug dealership.
Yeah.
you know, and so he just kind of, I always saw that in them, which was something that again for me was, I never expected to be an
Yeah.
owner of a company.
Sure.
For me, I was a communication or journalism major. So when I moved from Dallas to Houston in 2000, I ended up getting a job while I was in college at the Fox affiliate here. And I had actually done my internship at the Fox affiliate in Dallas.
Okay.
And I had displayed my characteristic to my news director. Even though I was doing an internship, he saw my work ethic and he
Sure.
saw my qualities. So, although I didn't have a college degree when I moved to Houston, I simply just had to pick up the phone and call him and say, "Hey, there's two positions here in Houston. One
Yeah.
is at the NBC affiliate, the other one is at the Fox affiliate. Which one should I go for?" And that's when I learned the power of a referral, because he said,
Oh yeah.
"Call Fox, talk to this person, let them know I referred you, and you should be good." That was on a Tuesday. I went to my interview on a Thursday, and I was the new assignments editor at Fox
That's
on
right.
Monday,
Yeah.
with no college degree, nothing, but just who I displayed as
Yeah.
a person, to build that trust in him, to know that
Yeah.
if he was to give that referral, then
Yeah.
it would be warranted positively. And
Yeah.
I quickly picked up. And then, my mom had opened up the moving company in Dallas. She decided after 10 years of being a registered nurse, she wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so her brother actually owned a moving company in Dallas for 30
Okay.
years. And
Wow.
he helped her open her business. And then she helped me open my location. It was a means to earn money for books and tuition, but gradually started to build it.
Yeah.
And now, unexpectedly, here we are 20 plus years later.
Yeah. With as you said, a college student for a business. Your
Absolutely.
20-year-old child, right? Um,
Absolutely.
Well, I love the story. I mean, first off, wow, on just family and where you come from and just the pedigree of figure it out. I mean, it is no shock that you have the work ethic that you do. I mean, you get to see it firsthand. I just think that it's so incredible. What do you think in that first year or two or three in business that was a really good decision that you made, practically speaking, that the listener can take a note of real quick and go apply it in their business like today?
So for me, one of the first, there was actually two instrumental
Okay.
moments for me. One of them was, we started the business operating out of Excel spreadsheets, because as a business owner, you
That's
don't
what
know
you
how
do.
to manage the finances. Everything just kind of goes into a shoebox,
That's
and
right.
you
That's
just
right.
take that shoebox to your CPA and say, "Figure it out."
Yeah.
And you
If
really
that even is a step.
which is an important step, but in
It
any
is.
case,
Yeah.
or an essential step, but
That's
in
right.
any case, yeah. So you don't really, when I started my business, I was in my early 20s, and I never got my college degree because I got into the communication world and I felt that the real world was conflicting with what I was learning in school. So I'm like, let me just save this money. And I had started my moving company, and just kind of life took its course, and nobody ever
Yeah.
gave me a business degree or gave me a roadmap or a
Right.
plan of how to run a business.
Yeah.
Anything that I've ever done has been as a result of experiences. And
Right.
so, yeah, I mean, those first 4, 5, even 7 years, it's like a marriage, they say the 7-year itch, it's like once you get over
Yeah.
that 7-year hump, I think with a business, you have the ability to say, okay, now I have my systems in place, my processes in place, because as a business owner, you don't really understand all of the fundamentals. I mean,
Right.
even down to the simplest things of HR
Yeah.
and confidentiality, non-solicitation agreements, or employment agreements, or policies and procedures. So, a lot of my policies and procedures were developed along the way as things organically happened. And I felt the need that I had to write it down and communicate
Yeah.
it. But again, I
Exactly.
didn't go anywhere and buy a, template of a policy and
Right.
procedure handbook. It definitely
Yeah.
had to be something that got developed. And throughout the years, it was something that I would say, if you are a six figure and you're looking into leveling up, you have to know what your finances are, and you have to have control over your finances. I implemented QuickBooks very early on. That was somewhere around, started in 2001, somewhere around 2004. I implemented QuickBooks because QuickBooks gave me leverage for me to be able to go to my bank and give them some sort of document that was legitimate for them to look at, to be able to see what it was. It wasn't
Right.
and it was real time. It wasn't something that I had to go and ask my CPA to put together. And I could start seeing the analytics and all aspects of it, whether it was marketing, whether it was expenses, or, it gives you this visual of how your business is performing and what you
Yeah.
need to do, where you need to cut your expenses, or what you need to invest in order to be able to grow.
Right.
And so that was a learning curve, because nobody ever taught me how to
That's
use
right.
QuickBooks. So
Right. Right.
thankfully, at that time, Google was out and YouTube had started kind of putting some training videos, and you start
Sure.
watching them and teaching yourself.
That's
And
right.
so definitely getting, if you are wanting to level up, getting into some sort of software that does allow you to be able to maintain those metrics, for you to have
Right.
that visibility, and that control. And then secondly, the second instance was somewhere around 2007, 6. I had a competitor of mine
Yeah.
who, back then, advertising in the yellow pages was the thing to
Yeah.
do, because the internet was just kind of like the new thing around. And my competitors would have two ads. You open the book and it would say boom, boom, the same moving company. But when somebody who was the consumer looked at it, that meant authority, right? Because you
Mhm.
have that authority in that book. We ended up naming our company Ameritex, so alphabetically we could fall in the very front of the yellow
Right.
pages.
Right.
And so when people went and searched, oh, okay. But we couldn't afford the ads. And so our business model was set up on a referral program, where we
Right.
would pay leasing agents at apartment complexes
Yeah.
$10 for every referral. And we
Yeah.
had established our little group that was constantly referring us.
Yeah.
And it turned out to where the competitor asked a mutual person that we both knew, how does Ameritex do it? How do they not advertise in the yellow pages, but still
Hmm.
produce business? And they disclosed our marketing methods. And so the
Hmm.
competitor went and said to all of these leasing agents, okay, Ameritex offers you $10. I'm going to offer you $20. Ameritex pays you monthly. I'm going to pay you weekly. Ameritex pays you with a check. I'm going to pay you cash. And
Right.
literally overnight, our business changed. It was something
Wow.
to where people that I would see coming in on a weekly basis just disappeared. And when I would call them and ask them, they would say, oh, we're just slow right now. Things are just
Right.
slow. To the
Yeah.
point where after the third or fourth week, I said, like, come
Nope.
on, man, like, reason with me. You've known me long enough to not have to beat around the bush, and tell me the truth, and got the truth out of them. And they said,
Yeah.
now there's somebody else, and we're giving our customers both options instead of just you as the option. And so
Uh-huh.
I'm like, okay, how am I going to combat this? Because it impacted me negatively. And so
Yeah.
I decided the power of networking
Oh
and
yeah.
expanding myself to people that were key decision makers,
That's right.
not people that were on the front line, but how could I get myself to the decision makers to then have me trickle down to the properties? And so I
Yeah.
became involved in an organization. It is the largest trade organization actually in the nation, the Houston Apartment Association. And that was in 2006, the end of it. And I became active in everything. I started getting on committees and doing everything I needed to do to display who I am as a person. And
That's
when
right.
I first became involved, Chaz, I would go in and I would shake their hand and I would say, "Hi, my name is Beth and I'm with Ameritex Movers." "Oh, movers? We don't want movers, because movers, we don't want people moving out our residence." And it's like, no, 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 wait. Not what about the people moving into your properties? What about the
Right.
people that you transfer from one unit? What about the
Yeah.
fires, the floods, the hurricanes? And I had to bring my value to that
Yeah.
customer and tell them that I'm on their site more frequently than their landscapers are. And don't they want to protect their assets by teaming up with someone who's credible, accountable, liable, reliable, and,
Yep.
put everything out there for them, to where over time they identified my character and built that trust to know that I could be a vendor who supported them. And I mean, there have been members that have probably served in that organization for 30 plus years and have never been afforded the opportunities that I was so blessed to, because
Right.
within 3 years of my involvement, I was asked to serve on their board of directors. I got
Wow.
on their board of directors in 2009. It was a 6-year commitment. And
That's right.
as a business owner, that was pretty much one of the first times that I learned what a profit and loss statement was. I actually sat in one of their board meetings and they're like spitting out all these like big words. And I'm just like,
Yep. I'm
okay,
here. I'm just here taking
like,
notes.
oh yeah, like fake it till you make it. Totally. Like I know
Yep.
exactly what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
I got home and I Googled it and I figured it out. And I would go home and I would tell my parents, like, we have to have board meetings and we have to talk, like, and they're like, "No, we're just a small business.
Or
We
just
don't,
mom and pop.
you know,
That's right.
and you can't think like that. As a
Yeah. No.
business owner, if you're starting out, you have to think big in order to get big. And if
Yeah.
you think that you're mom and pop, you're going to stay mom and pop. But you have to put that structure in your business and that mindset. And again, form that discipline of
That's
doing
right.
your board meetings, doing your minutes, setting up your company agreements and documents in a way to where you're legit. And even though
Yeah.
it's just one or two of you, it doesn't make a difference,
It's all
that
mindset.
value, it gets built over time. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna pull out three things. You just gave so much value. I hope that the listeners paying close attention. They're gonna have to go back and listen to this one a couple times. The three things. So first off, there's 4 basics in a business: marketing, sales, client experience, and finance. You hit on 2 of them: finance and marketing. You're gonna have to get creative in marketing, whether that's through networking, whether that's through referral programs, watching out for competitors. All of that she just gave to you. You have to figure out a way to get business in the door repeatedly. You need a funnel of people coming through, and you need to have it always full. That's the only way to get to 7 figures and beyond. The second thing that she hit on was finance. You got to know your numbers. I know you're saying right now to yourself, I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not a numbers girl. It doesn't matter. You can't take the shoebox. First off, you need a CPA to take the shoebox too, but don't take the shoebox. Get the QuickBooks, get the software like Beth is talking about. Spend the time. It's necessary. If you don't get the finance piece right, it's very, very difficult to scale, because your understanding has to be there first financially. You have to know where the numbers are. And then the third piece that I heard her say, she said, you show up with value by serving over a period of time. When she joined the network of this Houston association, apartment association, it wasn't just, hey, here's my card. We can help you on your next move. It was, I'm going to show up and serve in this committee. I'm going to show up and serve in this committee. I'm going to bring value through explaining how my company can value you, not just to get another job or to get another project. It's to show up over the course of time, bring value by serving. You want to cap us off with anything before we move to the speed round, Beth?
Absolutely. And the servitude part of it is something that, again, builds trust and
Right.
builds that ability for people to not only use you one time, but become repeat customers. So for
Yeah.
me, now what I initially formed as partnerships are lifelong friendships.
Right.
These are
Right.
things that I will take with me. And, it's interesting because one of the things that we talk about during one of our supplier education programs in this organization is it doesn't matter who you're with. You can be with this carpet company or that carpet company. They're going to follow you. Once they get to know you, they're going to follow you. And, in my case, I'm hoping to not go to another moving company, but, as far as
Yeah.
following you, they are going to commit to you. They are going to be that person that is going to trust you. And at some point, the price doesn't necessarily become the focus, whereas they know, hey, I can pick up the phone and this person is going to take care of it for me regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. You're talking about building sustainability of relationship, which then is the foundation for continued business, the whole works. So super great. In the speed round here, Beth, I'm going to ask you first about the most important trackable KPI. What is that one thing that you would track forever and ever inside your business?
Yeah. So profit and loss.
Okay. And what does that mean to you from a rest of the business perspective? If you know that number, how does that help you run the business?
For me to be able to see the profit and loss statement, it essentially tells me the whole story of what I'm spending and what I'm bringing in. I understand, a lot of people may focus on generating sales, but at the end, you can spend it faster than you can bring it in some cases. I mean, especially now with the economy, inflation, the prices of everything going up. As a business owner, if you are not mindful of how you balance your expenses, then there's not going to be a profit at the end. And so ultimately, being able to evaluate and shave off what you don't need. Right now, I hear all the time these subscriptions for these apps that track your subscriptions, and you can go in and you can clear up your subscriptions and, kind of reduce your expenses. Okay, well, that's pretty much QuickBooks and your profit and loss, because it's showing you what you're spending line item wise and how you can reduce that or be able to just eliminate it if it's not needed and it's just an unnecessary expense. So, and then we can also track discounts. So, what are we spending on discounts? What are we spending on chargebacks? And be able to identify what's our claims, to be able to identify our claim ratio. We can break it even down further to be able to see, what the customer base is and identify, where those sources are. So, all of that information eventually helps with marketing, eventually helps with, just operating the business as a whole.
Yeah, love it. What book would you recommend, Beth, for a six-figure business owner?
Okay, so I am not a book reader and have never, ever, ever been a book reader. If anything, I'm like a Cliff's Notes version. Just let me read the sidebar and get the idea. Summarize, please. So for me, I am a podcast listener, and I would say your podcast. But in any case, for me, it's if I had to say a book, I would say QuickBooks.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to be able to read your QuickBooks and analyze your reports and your analytics and be able to understand your company's finances backwards and forwards. So if it's a book, I would say QuickBooks. But in all reality, if it is something that you're going to, gain additional value from, for me, I am a marketing queen and I love to be up to speed with what's going on. So I listen to The Social Media Marketer with Michael Stelzner. And he keeps me up to speed on trend with what's going on with Facebook, Google, all these algorithms, Instagram, and, it's constantly changing. And as a business owner, especially during COVID, because COVID disconnected us, right, as human to human contact. And we had to evolve to the next stage of doing Zoom-like meetings or being able to do things like socialize. And so through that experience, social media became more important than ever because people got to see you, people got to keep up with you, people know what you're doing, where you're at, and how you're doing. And so, and there's so often that I'll tell my friends, we might not talk all the time, but I see you posting on Facebook. So as long as I know you're posting on Facebook, I know everything is good,
Yeah, exactly. Well, I just want to make sure that the listeners are fully in the know about your nerd alert earlier with the QuickBooks reference. I love it. I love that you love numbers.
Believe it or not, I never did. I was terrible in math. I was the girl that I got my first checkbook at 18 from Bank of America. And I was like, I'm going to go and write post-dated checks for this 1-year tanning membership. And then I never could put the money in the bank account. And so my mom would have to go bail me out for all these hot checks, that I was writing around town and go pay the tanning memberships off. And and then even when I took my tests in school, I was always so fearful of math. I had to take my task test 6 times before I passed it by 1 point. And so again, communication, speaking, language, all of that was like what I excelled in school. And when I became a business owner,
it's the language of business.
It completely transformed. But then again, having the right tools, because it was a struggle working out of a spreadsheet and being able to see it. And when I had a system and a process in place that was transparent for me, then essentially the computer's doing the work for me. It's not necessarily that I'm going in and, figuring and adding it together. It's just a data entry source where I'm inputting information and doing my day-to-day. I was explaining to my new accounting leader that I just hired that when you are entering in your day-to-day transactions, whether you're paying your vendors or you're doing payroll or you're paying bills, it's automatically getting recorded in there for you. So, although it might seem slow, and some people tend to call it slow books, ultimately, when you're running those reports, it is quick. And I'm not a spokesperson for QuickBooks.
No,
I feel like I'm like advertising.
Well, it was your book recommendation, so it's all good. I think that's super relatable because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs feel the way that you do about numbers, math in general. And so it's super relatable that you have been able to get where you are. And that is your book recommendation after all of this, even though that was your history. I think it makes it super positive for the listener to be able to go, okay, this is something that you can do. It's something that you need to do, but it is something that you can do also. Definitely. Beth, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
If you could whisper in the younger Beth's ear, what would you say?
Balance. Find the opportunity to balance. My full focus has been on my career and building this business. And I have, at this stage of my life, realized that there are things in my life that I've neglected, whether it was me personally, or it was my family or my friends. That balance is super, super important because you get sucked in as an entrepreneur and you are dealing with the day-to-day and you are sometimes trying to keep your head above water and you have all of these challenges coming at you left and right, and still finding that time. August 25th, I ended up burying my friend of 38 years. Wow. She was my very first friend. We met in ESL when I was 7 years old. She had come from El Salvador and I had come from Iran, and neither one of us knew how to speak English, but we had this common bond. And we grew up throughout all these years together. And even though at some point life kind of took us in different directions, there was still that, like, every birthday you would text each other and just say hello. And I was her first friend, and she was the last person that got a text from right before she passed away. And she was 45 and I'm 45. And it was a huge reality check for me because it can happen at any time. Your life is so precious. And when you become so blinded by, the day-to-day and don't focus on balancing everything that you have in your life, it sometimes becomes a regret. And I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to have regrets. And so I'm realizing that and understanding the importance of that to be able to do it now. But if you are the younger Beth and you have the chance to be able to make that change in your journey to where you are going to become the older Beth, then I would say just don't take that time so aggressively and so seriously and find that balance.
Yeah, so good. Beth, how can the listener connect with you, whether they're in the Houston area and they need to have their belongings moved? How can they find you? How can they connect with you? Even if they just want to pick your brain, where can they find you?
Yeah, so we are going to be on a show that is called Designing Spaces. It's going to be the local Houston show. And for us, it's stressfreemove.com. That's the website. And then our phone number is 713-484-MOVE, MOVE, which is 6683. But in any case, Google us, Ameritex Houston Movers, or stressfreemove.com.
I love it. You've been sensational. You've dropped so much value here today. We wish you nothing but blessing on your family, your business, all that you put your hands to. Thank you so much, Beth.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing literally over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings literally exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.